ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः सुष्ठुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमि स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। प्रज्ञां शुप्रदानैः स्थिरधरनिकरैः व्यापिभिर्व्याप्य लोकान् भुक्त्वा भोगान् स्तविष्टान् पुनरतिदिशनोद्भासितान् कामजन्यान् पीत्वा सर्वान् विशेषान् स्वपिति मधुरभुङ् मायया भोजयन्नो मायासङ्ख्यं तुरीयं परममर्जं ब्रह्म यत्तन्नतोऽस्मि। यो विश्वात्मा विदिजविषयान् प्रास्य भोगान् स्तविष्टान् पश्चाश्चान्यान् स्वमिति विभवान् ज्योतिषा स्वेन सूक्ष्मान् सर्वानेतान् पुनरभिशनैः स्वात्मनि स्थापयित्वा हित्वा सर्वान् विशेषान् विगतगुणगणैः पात्वसौ न तुरीयः। The Mandukya Upanishad. ओमित्येतदक्षरमिदं सर्वं तस्योपव्याख्यानं भूतं भविष्यतीति सर्वम् ओङ्कार एव यच्चान्यत् त्रिकालातीतं तदप्य ओङ्कार एव सर्वं ह्येतद् ब्रह्म अयमात्मा ब्रह्म सोऽयमात्मा चतुष्पात् जागरितस्थानो बहिःप्रज्ञः सप्ताङ्ग एकोनविंशतिमुखः स्थूलभुक् वैश्वानर प्रथमपादः स्वप्नस्थानो अन्धप्रज्ञा सप्ताङ्ग एकोनविंशतिमुखः विविक्तभुक् तैजसो द्वितीयपादः यत्र सुप्नो न कञ्चन कामं कामयते न कञ्चन स्वप्नं पश्यति तत् सुषुप्तं सुषुप्तस्थान एकीभूतः प्रज्ञानघन एव आनन्दमयो आनन्दभुक् तेजोमुखः प्राज्ञस्तृतीयपादः एष सर्वेश्वरः सर्वेश सर्वज्ञः एष अन्तर्यामी एष योनिः सर्वस्य प्रभवप्ययो हि भूतानां न अन्धप्रज्ञं न बहिःप्रज्ञं नो वेदप्रज्ञं न प्रज्ञानघनं न प्रज्ञं नाप्रज्ञम् अदृश्यम् अव्यवहार्यम् अग्राह्यम् अलक्षणम् अचिन्त्यम् अव्यपदेशम् एकात्मप्रत्ययसारं प्रपञ्चोपशमं शान्तं शिवम् अद्वैतं चतुर्थं मन्यन्ते स आत्मा स विज्ञेयः सोऽयमात्मा अध्यक्षरमोङ्कारात् अधिमात्रं पाता मात्राश्च पादा अकार उकार मकार इति जागरितस्थानो वैश्वानर प्रथमपात्र आप्तेरादिमत्वाद्वा आप्नोति ह वै सर्वान् कामान् आदिश्च भवति य एवं वेद स्वप्नस्थानत् तैजस उकारो द्वितीया मात्रा उत्कत्काद् उभयत्वाद्वा उत्कर्षति ह वै ज्ञानसन्ततिं समानश्च भवति न अस्य ब्रह्मवित्कुले भवति य एवं वेद सुषुप्तस्थानप्राज्ञो मकारस्तृतीया मात्रा मितेरपीतेर्वा मिनोति ह वा इदं सर्वम् अपीतिश्च भवति य एवं वेद अमात्रश्चतुर्था अव्यवहार्य प्रपञ्चोपशमः शिवम् अद्वैत एवमोङ्कार आत्मैव संविशति आत्मना आत्मानं यम् एदं वेद। Om Shat. So we have been doing the Mandukya Upanishad with the Gaudapada's Karika and commentaries which Shankara had written, the synopsis which I have been explaining through the last 25 classes or 25 sessions we have completed. To remind and recall and today being the last class for the Advaita Prakaranam, we are completing the Upanishad and the Karikas with this class. And the upcoming chapter, which is called the Alada Shanti Prakaranam, is basically a summary of the first, second, and third chapter with the review of opponents' views like Sankhya, Vaisheshika, Nyaya, etc., and Bauddha, with their interpretation, how it is different from their interpretation, and how does it gel with the total philosophy of Gaudapada and the Advaita philosophy as such. So before going to the fourth chapter and concluding the third chapter with the 7-8 verses, I will just recall what the Upanishad mentioned in its first 7 mantras, which are the most important aspects of it, just as a summary or a revision. So the first mantra said, Omiti etat aksharam idam sarvam tasyopa vyakhyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyati asarvam onkara eva. So Om iti etat aksharam idam sarvam. This sarvam, this jagat or this experience or the totality of us can be represented by the word Om as a syllable. And this Upanishad, Tasya Upavakhyanam, is the explanatory note, or this Upanishad is explaining that, which can be also said as Sarvam, can be interpreted as Bhutam Bhavat Bhavishyat, that is past, present, and future. All this thing is Onkara Eva, Sarvam Onkara Eva. Not only that, Yat Cha Anyat, apart from that, Trikaladidam, which is beyond the past, present, and future, Tadapi Onkara Eva. Even that is also part of the Onkara, or that Onkara includes even the beyond what is present, past, and future. Sarvam Hedat Brahma. Now Sarvam, which is used in the first mantra, is indeed the Etat Brahma, is also known as Brahma. And that I am Atma Brahma, this I am Atma, this Atma of the listener and the speaker is indeed that Brahma. Soyam Atma Chatushpat. Now this Atma should be understood as this Soyam Atma, means that Atma which is now being referred here, I am, in this Upanishad, should be understood Chatushpat as 4 aspects of the Atma, or the experience can be categorized or analyzed in the 4 methods. So here in the first part of it, he is taking the waking hours. Jagarida sthano bahi prajna saptanga ekona vimshati mukha sthula book Vaishwanara pradama padaha. The Jagarita sthana, the waking state, is bahi prajna, is predominantly by the external awareness of the world, and it consumes, book means one enjoys, sthula book, what is gross in the experience with the sensory inputs, and it is called Vaishwanara, which is the Pradama Padaha, is the first quarter or the first aspect should be understood as the first one, which is the Jagrat or the waking up. The second one is Swapnasthana Andha Pratnyaha. The Swapnasthana or the dream state is Andha Pratnya, is aware of the internal world of experiences. Now this is what one should understand, that it is not only talking about the dream while what we call it as dream. Therefore it says Vivivikta book Taijasa. Turiya Padaha. Vivivikta book means it is subtle or not gross, and it is but very clear also at the time of experiencing. Therefore, and it is predominantly Taijasa, is by the light of memory or the light of consciousness only it can be experienced, and that is the Dvitiya Padaha, is the second aspect of it. So the subtleness of experience which is enlightened by our awareness as to be treated as Swapnasthana, which includes all non-gross experiences. And then the third one is Yatra supto na kanjana kamam kamayate na kanjana swapnam pachati tat sushuptam. Yatra means in that third state, suptaha na kanjana kamam kamayati. The suptaha, the second quarter, what has been referred as the non-gross consumer, na kanjana kamam kamayate. There is no desire or nothing being done by even at the subtle level. Na kanjana swapnam pashyati, is not even consuming or experiencing the subtleness of the atra suptaha means is the deep sleeper is being referred here. So in the deep sleep, na kanjana kamam kamede, there is no desires which is predominantly happening in the waking. Na kanjana swapnam pashyati, it is not even having the dream world. Tat sushuptam, that suptaha or sushuptam is the same. That is what is called the sushuptaha or the deep sleeper. Sushupta sthanaha, in the state of sushupti, eki bhudaha, it was dissolved into oneness. Pratnyana ghanaha, it is a pure awareness as a mass of lump of awareness. And there is nothing other than that. Evam anandamaya, because there is nothing other than that, it appears to be the most peaceful and pleasing and peaceful state of experience. Na andabuk cheto mukha, anandabuk cheto mukha. That cheto mukha here is to be understood that it is the one which is enjoying the bliss or the peace of the deep sleep with the chejo mukha, with that which not going as consuming it as something apart from it, but as the light itself. With the face of the light, it has the appearance itself. The experiencer of the deep sleeper is in the face of consciousness itself. Pratnya Tritiya Pada is known as the Pratnya, is the third quarter. Esha Sarveshwara, Esha Sarvatnya, Esha Antaryami, Esha Yoni, Sarvasya Prabhavapyavu Bhutana. Now that state, which is the third state, can also to be considered as Sarveshwara, because he is a Lord of all, because it is from there the waking and the dream is springing out. So it is a Sarveshwara. And Sarvatnya, because it is the one which is becoming everything, therefore it knows everything. Esha Antaryami, it is Antaryami is because it is not experienced outside, therefore it is Antaryami, as if residing inside. Esha Yonihi, it is the sprout or the embryo from where the world of waking, the dream and the subtleness and the grossness, everything is coming up. Sarvasya Prabhava Apiyayohi, Bhutanam Sarva Bhutana. So for all the creation, the Prabhava, the springing up or the appearance and Apiyav and the dissolution is happening into it. So that is the state from where the waking and the dream is springing up, and into which the waking and dreaming dissolves it, and eki bhutaha. For that is why it can be considered as Sarveshwara, Sarvatnyas, Antaryami. And then the fourth aspect is being explained in the seventh mantra. Na andapraknyam. It is not the subtleness with which we experience the inner world of experience. Na bahipraknyam. Not the knowledge, awareness of the gross of the world outside. Na uveda praknyam. Now there is a state where in the waking itself we have the mixture of both subtle and gross being experienced. Ubeda Pratnyam is a mixture of both gross and, I think it's something like memory and dream, etc. Na prajnana ghanam. It is not that lump of consciousness which is of the deep sleep. So if it is neither waking nor dream nor anything, then the question can come is na prajnam. Therefore, it is not awareness at all, or is it na aprajnam? It is that shunyata, or it is that void where aprajnam is where the void is happening. So that all those things, it is being refuted. It is none of them. It is beyond all definitions. Therefore, to say which is beyond all definitions, it is itnya prajnana ghanam, not even prajnana ghanam. So to say that it is adrishyam, it cannot be perceived through any sense organs. Avyavaharyam, there is no transaction happening using that or in it. Therefore, there is no vyavahara or transaction. Agrahyam, it cannot be grasped by any means, either by the organs of action or by the organs of senses or by the mind, intellect, etc. So it is agrahyam by in all means. Because alakshanam, because there is no definite mark or identifier with which it can be restricted or pointed outside, this is that. Therefore, achintyam. So it is not possible with the intellect to think what it is, the shape, or how does it look like. Avyavadesham ekatma pratyadharyam. So it cannot be as an instruction which can be given to make it to understand, but it is ekatma pratyadharyam. In every aspect, there is a awareness as a substratum, and that essence of that every existence, the dependency of every atma or every self, even from a microbial or nano aspect of creation to the grossest of the cosmos, everything has got something called a self, an aspect of self, its own existence or its own independent existence. That is what is called Atma. That Atma Pratyam means by the name with which we call it is, whether we call it as an atom or micro, bacteria, animal, human being, plant, trees, suns, planets, cosmos, etc. These are all pratyas. So Saram is essence of that. So Ekatma, when essence of everyone, every name, the essence of the names with which everyone says I am or I or this, that aspect is called Ekatma Pratyasaram. And that is only can be understood Prabhanchovasham, when the multiplicity which is being experienced, when that is gone, then you get into that Prabhanchovashamam avastha or Ekatma Pratyasara. This is clear when we have that, when the world of experience of the waking is gone, when the world of experience of the subtleness of the dream, memory, daydreaming, etc. is gone, we get into a state of deep sleep. That is the time when it is called Prabhanchovashamam. Now this Prabhanchovashamam is not exclusive to deep sleep. That is the nature of Atma. Therefore, it is Shantam, pure and peaceful, Shivam, without any contamination, or there is no way it is contaminated or anything. Advaitam, there is no duality in it. It is a pure essence. Chaturtham manyante, therefore it is considered as beyond the dreamer, waker and the deep sleep experience. Chaturtham manyante, it is not that it is a fourth one. It is Chaturtham, is the fourth is being considered because It is in that the waking, dream and deep sleep take place. It is in all the three states of waking, dream and deep sleep, but it is not contaminated by the waker, dreamer or the deep sleeper. Therefore, it is the fourth one. That is the Atma, Sa Atma. That is the Atma, Savitneyaha. And that as the Atma which should be known. And this has been what has been taught by Gaudapada through his Karikas, starting from the first Agama Prakaranam, which was an explanation of the Upanishadic mantras. And the second chapter, he brought the Advaita Prakaranam, which is the illusory nature of world of experiences, because they are not permanent and they come and go, and the one which is observing is not one which is coming and going forth. Therefore, the subtleness or the illusionary nature of the world is being explained in the Advaita Prakaranam. And in the third chapter, which we are going to conclude today, Advaita Prakaranam, he has summarized the first two, saying that there is no difference between the absolute reality which is given in the Upanishadic mantras and the first chapter of the Agama Prakaranam, and the illusion which is treated as experiences by us in our transactional aspect. There is no difference between them, because they are all mere appearances of the first only. Therefore, Advaitam, there is no duality. There is no creation. The creation is mere an appearance, and that appearance have to have a dependency of the substratum on, because only on a substratum anything can appear. The substratum is the reality. The appearances are mere appearances for a limited period. Therefore, they are illusions. But doesn't mean that they do not have experiences. They do not give rise to experiences. That experiences are also of the nature of unreal. That is why we do not have a permanent experience of anything of the world. The world of experience comes and goes from the childhood till now. All experiences we have gone through, if you analyze it, nothing has stayed with us except the notion that I, the self, is the only one which has been observing the changes. So the changeless I is the one which has been always there, and that I is neither touched by anything which has been coming and going, nor that have any attraction or intention to be associated with these changes. Therefore, it is asangaha, means it is unattached with anything. This asangata itself is what is called asparsha, or what you call non-contact by the Atma with this thing. Only when the Atma, the person who has understood these as teachings of Gaudapada as what he has been teaching, he has the knowledge with which he can remain asparsha, or the knowledge of non-contact or non-entanglement with the world of experiences. This is what is been explained till now in the Advaita Prakarana, which is the last mantra, last Karika which he mentioned, is that Asparsha Yogo Vai Nama Durdasha Sarva Yoginam Yogino Bibhyadi Hi Asmat Abhaye Bayadarshina. The 39th Karika which he explained is that Asparsha Yogo Vai Nama, this yoga or this knowledge is known as Asparsha, Asangata, or non-contact. Sarva Yoginam Durdashaha. For all the type of yogis who are practicing the yoga method, or the type of yogas which is being practiced for the purpose of achieve, for them they cannot see it. Durdashaha means cannot be seen by them, because they do not follow the asparsha yoga of the non-contact, because they have been always in the process of attaining something. They are in the process of grasping something, or even experiencing something. This is something which cannot be experienced. Therefore, sarva yogina durdasha, they will never be able to experience it. Asmad yogina bibyandi abhaye. Therefore, the yogis are afraid to follow this path because they are interested to grasp and achieve something by the activity, by the karma or the yoga or all the methods which have been mentioned for the beginners. So even after becoming a yogi, he doesn't want to take a plunge into the asparshata or the non-attached aspect of the reality, and therefore they are afraid of abandoning the self, which they think is the self till now. That self is a non-contact or non-attached to anything which is known. It is beyond the knowns. So therefore people are scared. Asmad yogina bibhyandi. Abhaye Bhayadarshina. This state where it is all by itself and it is a Lord of all, Sarveshwara, Sarvajna is the knowledge of everything. Abhayam, that is the state of the fearlessness or the state of absolute fearlessness. Even that is being afraid of even attaining that by the yogis, because they feel that they will become non-entities, because when the self is gone, which they were thinking as the aham, that self individuality, when that is lost, everything is lost. That fear is the reason why they are seeing the fear in approaching to this through to a asparsha yoga. Now, having explained that, Gaudapada in the next 7-8 Karikas is giving us the method of practicality or applying this what he has been taught as the Nididhyasana or the method of meditation, using a unique meditative method which is not recommended even in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra or any other methods given earlier. So those who have understood this aspect of the Turiya and the dream world, waking world and the deep sleep as experiences happening in Turiya, and the Turiya or the Brahma or the Atma is my reality, and I need to abide in that as a asanga or unattached or uncontacted or asparsha yogena. This asparsha yoga, how do we practice, is being explained by Gaudapada from the 40th Karika onwards. Manaso nigrahayattam abhayam sarvayoginam dukkakshaya prabodecha apicha akshaya shanti evacha. Sarvayoginam, for all the yogis, abhayam, this state of fearlessness, manasa nigrahayattam, can be achieved by nigraha of the manas. Now, nigrahayattam, the word the nigraha is a word used in a special sense by Gaudapada, because when we go to the next Karikas, you will understand why he is using the word nigraha. Mano nigraha, it is not the chitta vritti nirodha. See, there is a difference between nirodha and nigraha. Graha dhatu is basically to grasp. So nigraha means it is the one which is not grasping. Now manasa nigraha means the mind when it is not grasping anything. There is a state of mind being freed by any activity of grasping things, of experiences. Forget about the object. Even experiences are not grasped by the mind. That type of a state of the withdrawal of the mind is the one word which is mentioned as manasa nigrahayattam, which will be leading to dukkakshaya. Now here the word dukkakshaya is that one aspect of, is not the sorrow alone what he is mentioning. Here the dukkakshaya should be taken as all aspects of mind, because what is, as per Gaudapada, is the reality being perceived in the experiences are transient and temporal in nature. And whatever has been transient and temporal in nature has been always a cause for sorrow, because the attachment towards that or the engagement with that gets broken and there is no continuity on the experiences. Therefore, it is giving a sorrow or loss, or we feel left out, or that the absence of the experiences. Prabodha, Dukkakshaya Prabodha means Prabodha is what is called the annihilation of the sorrows. So, the Manasa Nigrahayatam, the process with which the mind need to be withdrawn for the annihilation of all the Dukkha and Kshaya, both of them. Cha api Akshaya Shanti Evacha. Not only that, also Akshaya Shanti Evacha. When you do that, when the transient nature of the temporal experience of the world, when it is not there, you have no aspect or nothing other than that which can come and go. Therefore, it is Akshaya. It is never diminished by that, because that is the unending peace or never diminishing nature of the peace or that. But all the peace or Shanti or Sugam, what we mention in our transaction, is that dependent upon the conditions of the mind. Now here, when the mind is withdrawn from all sparsha or all nigraha or nigrahayatam, when the contact with the experiences, when the mind is gone, that is a different Shanti, because that Shanti has nothing in it, that state has nothing other than the Atma or the observer or the substratum or the Turiya, Atma, whatever word you want to use it, doesn't matter. That is the unique state where the peace achieved remains as unending, Akshaya. It is also should be understood, this is the way in which one should, with what will be the outcome. Now, how do we do that? Manasa Nigrahayatam is easily said than done, because we all know that mind is the biggest culprit. And easily Gaudapada says Manasa Nigrahayatam. It is that Nigraha, the effort of Nigraha of the mind is the one with which you get Akshaya Shanti. So, for that he is now describing the methods one by one. Utsega Udega Yadvad Kushagrena Binduna Manasa Nigraha Tadvad Bhaved Aparikhedataha. Yadvat Kushagrena Binduna. Now an example is being given. Assume that you are using a needle, because Kushagra means is something similar to a needle. If you are dipping the needle into the ocean, and when you pull out, you may get a very small droplet at the end of it. Using this as an simile or an example, if somebody is trying to dry up the ocean using the needle and dipping the needle in the ocean and drying it, the droplet, Uddega, is the ocean, Utsake, drying up, Tadvat, like that, Manasa Nigraha, the control of the mind or the withdrawal of the mind from the objects. Here now you should understand that the mind is considered here to be the status which is engaged in the world of objects, which is considered as the ocean of experiences. From the ocean of experiences, when you are trying to withdraw the mind, it is as good as withdrawing every drop of ocean by dipping the needle like mind into the ocean and pulling out and drying it. It may appear to be impossible, but why he has mentioned here this example is Kushagrena Binduna. There is a story in one of the Puranas. That is the reason why he is using that example here. The story goes like this. There are two sparrows. The couple had laid eggs and they were in the cliff near the ocean. In the high tide, the ocean takes away the eggs and the birds are anguished. They were sorrowful, but they were determined that no, we will dry up the ocean and recover the eggs, because that is what is our purpose of life is being defeated otherwise. They were going, picking up with the beak a little ocean, coming to the land and throwing it. This became a big issue, and the news spread out. All the devas, asuras, manushya, sarva, yatnya, kingara, deva, gandharva, everybody was there watching this. And Narada Muni, he was passing by that, he also saw that, and he found that this is just madness. The birds will die, they will never be able to get the eggs from the ocean. So Narada goes to Vishnu and tells that Vishnu, this is just injustice which is being done. The ocean, after having seen that they are so determined to achieve the eggs, the ocean should have some empathy, or and given back the eggs to the birds. It is a shame for all creations, and you are the protector of all that has been created. So it is not this thing. So his vehicle, which is Garuda, is belonging to the bird family and supposed to be the king of the birds. So Vishnu glances at Garuda and say, see, it is your family of members which are suffering. Like that look the Vishnu gives to Garuda. And Garuda takes goes toward the ocean and enlarges its body so that the wings are spreading around the earth, type of a situation. And it starts blowing the wings, and the ocean starts becoming drier by each blow. And the Varuna Deva, who is the king of the ocean, immediately understood, I am under threat. But what mistake I did, I don't know. So he appears in front of the Garuda and asks for peace, and say that I do not know what mistake I has done. So please tell. So Garuda narrates what has happened, this thing. So understanding what the thing has happened, Varuna gives back the eggs to the birds, and the whole story ends that saying that even such a little creature giving an effort could shake the entire creation, the creator, to achieve its result. So Kushagrena Binduna is the example used there, that the birds were not taking water using their beak. They had taken a kushagra, the grass of a kusha, which is mentioned here. That was which was used by the birds. So the example Kushagra Binduna is only to remind us that it is not impossible, but it is something which is, takes lot of effort. Aparikedataha, when incessantly done, will abate. It will happen. Never mind that. So manasa nigrahayatvam, how will it is that don't feel that it is impossible to do that? Because that is why yogina bibhyandi, they have been trying to mano nigraham, mano nirodham, chitta vritti nirodha, what they were planning and practicing. And they found that it is impossible to handle that, because what was doing is, whenever you try to control the mind gets again back to its own. It is like a rubber. It goes back to its own nature. So if Gaudapada is saying Mano Nigraha is the only way, the question can come, it is something which is being impossible. To that, saying that here Gaudapada says, don't even think that even Kushagra Binduna, that birds were able to get to achieve their result, even though Apahadikedada, even when it is done incessantly. So there should not be any fear that you will not achieve. So to understand that, there are 4 types of obstacles for a Mano Nigraha. I am not talking about Chitta Vritti Nirodha, I am talking about Mano Nigraha, which is also called Dhyana Pradibandha. The prana pratibandha, there are four obstacles which are normally faced in the nididhyasana are, one is called the laya, the mind getting into a sleep mode because of the rise of tamoguna. When the activity of the mind goes, it goes into a tamoguna state, and the tamoguna is the slumber which will push one into laya. Laya means sleep. That is the one of the impediments or the pratibandha. The next one is viksheva, the wandering of the mind and a highly active mind. So rajoguna is predominantly by the rajoguna, the activity of the mind. The mind is unsettled all the time, so they are not able to do the mano nigraha or controlling it. So that becomes a thing. That here this vikshepa has got different aspect. That is, which I'll come to it later. And vikshepa is caused by two aspects of it. One is our current transactional knowledge and memory and likes and dislikes and raga dvesha, etc. And there is one thing called invisible, or what is called the vasana preritam, or the latent nature of the mind. So that aspect I will be explaining after the fourth one is explained. The third and fourth. The third one is the kashayam, is the unmanifest or hidden disturbances due to hidden raga and dvesha. Now, hidden raga and dvesha is what? Raga and dvesha is likes and dislikes. We are unaware of certain likes and dislikes in our normal transaction, but only when we start looking at the mind closely as the activities of the mind, we ourselves will be surprised that unwanted thoughts are coming up. From where did these type of thoughts come up is unpredictable, or there is no explanation. We have never experienced these type of experiences in our normal life, but mind is bringing up these experiences of objects or experiences or likes and dislikes which are till now not nurtured by us in our normal life, and that is what is called kashayam, or the contamination of the mind by the nature of the raga and dvesha which is in the subconscious mind. And the fourth and the last one is rasaswada. Rasaswada is that when the mind starts becoming tranquil or peaceful, there is a happiness which naturally comes in the mind. This happiness is what most of the meditators, those who are thinking that they have achieved that experience of bliss and peace, and they think that this is that, and they like to go back to that state of bliss and peace and say called rasaswada. That is that engagement of that bliss of peace of the mind, but it is not the mind has become nigraha. The mind has becoming due to this ananda, or is basically due to the absence of rajas and tamas, but it is not completely become sattvic also. So the predominance of the sattvic nature comes in the mind. There is a tranquility and the peace which is appearing in the mind for the meditators, and most of the meditators feel that I have achieved my goal, and they start reveling in that one, not knowing that it is a play of the mind in the sattvic mode, not beyond beyond the mind which is being otherwise controlling you. Here we should understand that the mind has two things which are very difficult to control is vikshepa. Vikshepa is the wandering of the mind which is without our control. Now this to an extent we can bring by the jnana, using that what is being wandering of the mind. When you observe the mind, you get the mind is not being controlled. When the mind controls you, you have no control on yourself. But when you control the mind and it's wandering, you are the master of the mind, and you can control what is being taught. and you can objectify it, and when you objectify that happening in the mind, the Viksheva of the mind, or the wandering of the mind, will not get the energy or the support for reveling in that anushojanam, that continuous engagement in that object or the subject of experience. But what happens in the rasaswada is that there is no object, but it is a piece of the nature of the mind, but that itself is an experience. We do not realize that that is also an experience and should not be engaged in that experience. These aspects are being explained by Gaudapada in the subsequent Karikas. Upayena nigrihiyat vikshiptam kamabhogayoho suprasannam layecha eva yada kama layatada. Kama bhogayoho, immersed in the desires and their consumption. Vikshiptam, the perturbed mind. Upayena nigrihad, there is an upaya or a method which he has not explained in this Karika, but he is explaining in the next Karika. Upayena nigrihniyat should be, one should control the mind using that upaya or the method. Suprasannam laye, even though the deep sleep is giving the extreme peace, the suprasannam is that state of extreme happiness. Laye means, laya here, always understood the word laya is used as the laya of the deep sleep by Gaudapada. Laye suprasannam means that extreme happiness of the deep sleep. Evacha kama, even from the desires also, when the desires are fulfilled also, the mind becomes engaged, or mind becomes non-mind, in the sense that the mind forgets other things, but only in that desired object, and which we explained earlier, priya, moda, pramoda aspect of the mind. And the mind, when it becomes pramoda in the desired object, there also suprasannam or the extreme happiness is happening, both in the deep sleep as well as when it is achieved the desired object and engage in that object. This suprasanna avastha is happening. Yadha laye tada, in the kama. Both are identical, is what Gaudapada is saying. In the deep sleep, what happiness is that it is the same happiness in the waking, when we are engrossed in an object which has been achieved and we engage in that object for consumption of that. We forget everything and engage in it, because that was the most desirable thing which we wanted. And when we are engaging in that, we forget our own existence to the extent we engage in that, consumption of the object of desire. Both the laya, the deep sleep, and this one are identical as per Gaudapada's definition. Because there, when there is nothing to engage, also the mind had become in a laya or a dissolved state. When a desired object is achieved and the mind dissolves in the desired object, there also the laya takes place. The slumber and the desire is identical when in the similar situation. So upaya is what? Dukkam sarvam anusmritya kamabhogad nivartayet. Ajam sarvam anusmritya jatam na evatu pashyati. Now this is the upaya what he is saying, referring to the method. Sarva sugam anusmritya. Sarva sukam, dukkam, sarva dukkam. Dukkam means dukkam, sugam, dukkam, all those things which have to be included in that. When that anusmritya, when you are remembering that, kama bhogad, when it is the desires and their engagements which are the cause for the sukha, dukkha, etc., not the nature of the mind. And their anusmritya, by remembering that all experiences are from the engagement of the objects of the desires. Objects of desires, objects of hate, both can be included in that. Nivartayed, one should withdraw from that. That is, both likes and dislike, raga dvesha. From that, one should withdraw itself. Now, withdrawing is not possible. See, the problem with the mind is that it needs to, it is like a hook. It needs somewhere to be hung, then only it will remain there. Without that, the mind is not able to function. So, sarvam ajam, what we have learned till now in the first 2 and 3 chapters, we know that there is no real janmam, ajadavadu. So ajam is the nature of the reality. All those things which are seen as desires are jatam and therefore mritam. They all have got birth and death. So they are all transient in nature. The intransient one is the ajam or the unborn. Anusmritya, that remembering that, so the dehook the mind from the which are born and having death, the birth and death, or the transient ones which is having temporary in nature. You should know, not only you should know that are the temporary nature of the objects of desires, but you should hook the mind that there is the nature of the immortal I or ajam. What appears as jadam, na evatu pashyati. When you attach the mind to the ajam, that time the mind is not looking towards the transient ones. From the temporal, experiential, what comes and goes as experiences, when you turn the mind away from that towards the ajam, which is the inborn ekatma pratyasaram Prabhanchovasham shantam shivam advaitam. The 7th chapter has mentioned what is the nature of it. When you give that mind, that one to hold on to you, the mind will not look towards the temporal ones because it needs a permanent happiness. It is confused that happiness is in the changing objects, and therefore it was running after one after the other. But when the mind knows that this ajam or the nature of the permanency of one's own nature is the reality, and it is that paramam shanti, that akshayam shantam, that in the undiminishing happiness is that, then it doesn't look towards the outside experiences. But what happens? The mind being the mind, like a monkey, cannot be retained there. So Gaudapada says that laye sambodayet chittam vikshiptam shamayet punaha sakashayam vijaniyat samapraptam na chalayet. Now this is the real practice, upaya. Laye sambodayet chittam. If the mind goes toward the slumber and the deep sleep, sambodayet, wake it up, shake up by addressing it, bring it. So the moment you address the mind when it is going for the tendency for the mind is to run after the wandering nature. Vikshiptam, that will be the nature of the mind. When it going into wandering, you have to shamayet punaha. You have to bring it into the peace by addressing it from the temporary ones to the ajam nityam, that one which is again to be brought. But when it is coming there, mind has nothing to hold on to it, when it remains tranquil for some time, the tendency for the mind to slip into sleep is again. So this cycle will keep on happening. Laye sambodayet chittam vikshiktam samayet punaha sakashayam vijaniyat. These are all the impediments, is what one should understand, that the nature of the mind to shift between the deep sleep and wandering, is the kashayam. Now the kashayam has got, when the world of objects have also gone, there are what you call vasana preritam, or the inherent tendencies by which the mind will hold on and create, pull up the what you call deep subconscious mind tendencies for it, because when we are not allowing it to go out to the world, outside worlds have been explained, and now the mind has understood that they are all temporary in nature. But that is the time when the subconscious mind throws up its own impressions, and that becomes a attraction for the mind to hold on to it. That is the raga dvesha which is coming in there as a kashayam. So that also should be vijaniya. That should be made, the mind should be made to know that this is also not to be engaged in. When these cycle of, the mind going between the sleep to the external wandering to the internal wandering, these, when it is keep on happening, it will come to a stage, sampraptam. That will be a stage of when it becomes tired, not able to run after any of these things, and it will settle by itself, and it is not allowed to sleep because laye sambodhayat. We are waking it up, not allowing it to go to the deep sleep. There will be a stage of sampraptam. Sampraptam means that is once the tranquility is achieved. The samam is here the equipoise or tranquility. Praptam means having achieved that tranquility. Na chalaye. Then it should not be disturbed. Let it remain in that tranquil state forever. But from there, if it tries to go to sleep, that a tendency of the mind will be there to go to sleep first. Sambodhaye chittam. That time it should be shaken up again, and it will try to go for wandering. Don't allow it to go for wandering. And when it is throwing up the internal desires and everything, understand that these are all not real things. It is a tendencies of the subconscious mind. By educating the mind to all these three aspects, the absolute sampraptam is achieved. The tranquility of the mind is achieved. Then the next Karika said, Na aswadayet sukam tatra nissangaha pratnaya bhavet. Nischalam nischaritam eki kuryat prayatnataha. Na aswadayet sukam. There is a happiness in that tranquility. But one should not get, immersed in that, engrossed in that happiness of tranquility. Pratnaya nisangha bhavet. This is the asparsha yoga what is being referred. Pratnaya, by wisdom. Nisangaha bhavet. Even that should not be, because anything which is being experienced is not what the experiencer is. Therefore, even the tranquility which is being experienced, the mind, when it is not wandering or not consuming the subconscious mind desires, nor it is going to sleep, there is a tranquility, and that tranquility is still an experience. So that time, pratnaya nisangaha bhavet. By the wisdom of asparsha or nisangada, the wisdom should be applied. There you will be nischala, will be absolute, unmoving. The mind is not in motion. That is the time when the amani bhava or prabhanchovasham, everything has come to a standstill. Nischalam, nischara chittam, and the tendency of the mind to wander about is also not there, because it is in that state where it has pratnaya and it has been nisangha bhavet. It is been told to, it has been educated, it has been conditioned and trained to remain unattached to anything which is as an experience. So that state of alert mind, at the same time it is not experiencing anything. Eki kuryat prayatnataha. That one-pointedness, ekagrata, eki kuryat, ekagrata prayatnata. By effort, that ekagrata should be brought in. And Yada na liyate chittam nacha vikshaptate punaha aningana manasabhasam nishpannam brahma tattadaha. Yada na liyate chittam nacha vikshaptate punaha. When the mind is not in the going to the sleep, nor it is wandering about and disturbed again by tada, in that time, aningana mana abhasam. That aningana means the motionless mind is full of awareness, but there is no motion in the mind. Nishpannam, without any projection. That is what is Brahma or Atma. It is in full brightness, there is no experiencing. That is aningamanasam, nabhasam. So that mind is not in a mode of experiencing, and there are no projection, no deep sleep, no wandering of the mind, but it is full awareness without consuming, without knowing anything. But at the same time, it is in the bhasam, means it is in the full awareness. It is not that it is not awareness. It is not aware of anything, but it is aware of itself. That aware of itself not as an object, but as a existential reality. That is Brahma, Tad Brahma. That is what is to be understood as Brahma. Swastam Shandam Sanirvanam Akatyam Sugamuttamam Ajam Ajena Jneyena Sarvatnyam Parijakshate. Sukham, happiness. Swastam, fixed or steady. Shandam, peaceful. Sanirvanam, unified in oneness of that nirvana avastha or the turiya avastha, amani bhava avastha. In that, which is akatyam, which cannot be explained. Yat manasa namanute enahur manomatam. That is the state which it actually happens, which the mind cannot mind, but with which the mind becomes the mind. That will be known to the mind at that time, which is known as happiness, peaceful, and that state of amani bhava, when the mind, it becomes the no mind, at the same time full of awareness. Uttamam, extreme, that is the state of extreme awareness. It is not the awareness of any objectified awareness. It is awareness of the total awareness itself. Ajam ajena neyena, by that ajam, which is unborn, which because it doesn't become born, because, and by here the ajam ajena are the two aspects of the awareness itself. The first ajam is the mind which is not the born mind, which engages with the world outside. Therefore, it is the mind which is unborn before the birth as a individuality. Jivam kalpayade purvam is what the beginning state is that. This is that kalpana of the jiva itself has not happened. The jiva lost the separatedness of that. Therefore, it becomes ajam. Ajena, by the awareness of the Atma, Neyena, by knowing that, it becomes Sarvatnyam Parichakshate. It becomes the Sarvatnya, because now that awareness of the Atma is able to perceive the mind without any contamination, any kalanka or any kashaya, which is the substratum in which the world appears to be as separate, but the world is not there now. Then only that mind can be seen as ajam, before the creation. And that knowledge is the sarvatnya state of the omniscient state. Parichakshase, by those who have achieved that, they have mentioned this as the state where ajena ajam jneyena parichakshate tad brahma iti sarvatnyam parichakshate. And in the last Karika, Gaudapada concludes that न किंचित जायते जीवः संभवा अस्य न विद्यते एतत् उत्तमं सत्यम न किंचित न जायते. He is reiterating again, न किंचित जायते, jiva jayate. Never was the birth of a jiva has taken place. Not only that, sambhava asya na vidyate. There is no possibility for the creation to take place. Therefore, no, there was never a birth for a jiva, nor there is a potency for the jiva to be created. Etat tatuttamam satyam. This is the ultimate truth. Advaitam paramarthatah. Yatra kinchit na jayate. Where there is no birth for anything. The birth and the creation is only an unreality which is feeding the experiences, because the unreality is taken as a reality. Therefore, the experiences of the unreality becomes experience. In reality, there is no experience also. Ajena ajam jneyena sarvajnam parichakshate. When that mind becomes the unborn mind, means the state before the mind is born, that mind, when it is being perceiving the source from the mind itself has come, or the source is not different from where it is, and therefore the ajam ajena means become the mind becomes the atma. That is why the atma and the mind are not there is no two separate. The mind is not separate. The mind itself is the atma, but when we call it as mind, it has become the one which has felt the separate. But when the separatedness of the mind is understood by it, that there is nothing, no creation in reality, there is nothing other than that awareness. Therefore, the mind doesn't become any more mind. The amani bhava, the mind becomes the one, the ajam. And etra na kinchit jayate, there is nothing which is ever born. So therefore, there is no creation, there is no world of plurality, and the experiences is from the misunderstood creation, and experiences are appearances in the mind, not knowing its own reality. The moment mind knows its own reality, the mind becomes no mind, and then you become asparsha yoga, or that state of untouched by anything. You ajena ajapnete. So with that we complete the Advaita Prakaranam. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you. Dhanyawada.